Now, let's delve deeper into the latest figures with Professor Kim Sei-wan this morning. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. South Korea's economy, like I mentioned, grew 1.4% last year in 2023. Professor Kim, is this something you saw coming or a complete surprise?
Well, I would say it is something between a disappointment and a good surprise. Last year, Korean economy was weaker than the previous year, 2022, mostly due to declining domestic expenditures in retail sales and facility investment. But export surged in the last quarter of last year, which lessened the decline of Korean economy. So domestic expenditure was disappointing, but export was a good surprise.
So poor domestic consumption, but exports were stronger than you thought. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
All right, then still the growth of exports and private consumption didn't quite meet expectations. Well, at least the private consumption, like you mentioned. Do you think poor domestic spending will actually pick up this year in the new year, though?
Well, as we talked about, domestic expenditure was weak last year. In addition, Korean export decreased 7.4% on year in 2023. But this year's domestic consumption is expected to be weaker than last year's because domestic consumption is pretty much limited due to huge household debt and high interest rate. Therefore, this year's domestic consumption, along with capital investment by corporations, will be weaker than last year.
All right, poor domestic consumption, hopefully that will pick up this year. But some analysts are worried that growth below 2% for a second straight year might happen for the very first time this year. Professor Kim, why such a pessimistic view on this?
As of beginning of 2024, global economy is not fully recovered from COVID pandemic, and economic uncertainties are rising related to geopolitical crisis in Ukraine and Palestine. This is actually pretty much negative scenario to Korean economy because Korean economy is one of the most foreign dependent economies in the whole world. Also, Chinese economy for this year is expected to experience more serious downturn this year. China's GDP growth could slow to 4.6% in 2024 from 5.4% growth of last year because of continued weakness in China's property sector and subdued external demand. Since China is still #1 trading partner of Korea, Korean economy's growth will be limited along with China's slowdown.
Definitely. South Korea's economy is heavily reliant on China, especially when it comes to economy. Now, the goal this year is to achieve the over 2% growth. Now, 2.1% to be exact economic growth this year. How achievable is that? I mean, why is reaching 2% growth so important?
I'm personally positive in gaining over 2% growth for this year. As we talked about, the domestic expenditures of consumption and investment are expected to be worse than last year. So the remaining momentum drives Korean economy would be a stronger export. By industry sector, outbound shipments of automobiles, machinery, home appliances, and displays products will continue to be solid this year. If these export items growth maintains over 2 digits on year growth, that would be a positive sign of gaining over 2% growth for this year. And Korea's #1 export item of chip market is highly expected to be recovered from the first half of this year. And lastly, maintaining 2% level economic growth is important because the 2% is very close to Korea's potential growth, which utilizes all available resources of labor and capital.
Professor Kim, before I let you go, I want to quickly ask you, you said chip exports will do a better job in the first quarter of 2024. Where is this confidence coming from?
Well, according to the many surveys in global chip markets, market participants find that there is a stronger and solid demands for chips, particularly the memory chips produced by Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, thanks to the more development of the artificial intelligence and home appliances.
Definitely, lots of new gadgets as we saw at the CES in January. All right, Professor Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.